right, welcome. Call the December 7th meeting to order. Start with roll call. Neil?
Present.
Jennifer?
Present.
Grant is present. Thomas is he's going to join us remotely, but he's on a call right now, so not able to be here yet. We hope he can join us. And both Michael and Lana had previously scheduled absences, so we do not have a quorum. So we were, but I'll address that in a second. Let's go to the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks again for being here. So we're gonna reorder our agenda bits. So the things that require discussion and voting, will, if Thomas is able to join us, we can take care of those then. If he's unable to, depending on how long the call is, we may need to reschedule another brief meeting in the next few days. So we'll get that information out if necessary. So this would be jumping to the first opportunity for public input. No, if anybody signed up or online.
Nobody online.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. All right. So we'll jump right to reports. Student representatives, Ashton, thank you very much for being here.
This is very quick. I know. Thank you for having me again. There's been a lot going on, a lot of positivity. We had a play recently. I was not there, but it was alien themed from the movie. And when I was walking through during passing periods, I saw like the art they would do, and I've just seen pictures of it. They did like a fantastic job. They did the egg scene where they see hundreds of eggs, and I don't know how they did it. They painted a giant wall. Very impressive. Winter Wishes Week is this week. We're dressing up. I don't know all the names. There's so many days of the week. But tomorrow is your dress up as your favorite holiday character. I don't know who I'll be, but I'll probably just wear a Santa hat and call it quits there. Students can sign up for a gift thing. Up to 40 students can be gifted an item, and it's under $3. And this is run by Mrs. Serdal and the leadership crew. So kind of awesome. And seniors are starting to work on our FAFSA, to get ready for the rest of our lives. The school offers plenty of ways for us to work on it. Like tonight, they're doing a financial aid assistance night, which I am not going to since I'm here. There's an Instagram page that's run by students about our school. And some of the students found that helpful because they posted the 2-hour late schedule for Monday. So that's a plus. There was an Avid field trip. They went to UW. They showed the kids around the campus and all the programs they have. They were there for about 6 hours. So pretty educational from what I hear. And Equity League, next week, they're doing a whole club congregation thing. And they invited all the clubs to one party so they can discuss and try to work together in the future. And that's all that's about happening right now.
That's quite a bit. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashton.
Of course, yeah. I don't have any questions. I'm trying to make one up. I like hearing you talk. You're energized, excited about things going on, and thanks for bringing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Of course, sir.
All right. So next on our agenda is the school improvement plans. So So we're going to start with primary.
Mhm.
Sure.
All right.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the timer going, let's go. I keep tracking. So we have 3 main components that we were all asked to work on, and we have 3 separate goals. Could you do your Nana or van thing, I guess? Thank you. So our first goal is specific to, for us, our 2nd grade students who qualify being in the multilingual program. And it has to do specifically with their iReady ELA goals. In ELA, there are the 5 components, and 2 of them are really the responsibility of the ML program. That's what they focus on, is the ideas about literature and reading for informational text purposes. However, there are these other two components which are not at all the responsibility of the ML program. I should do with phonemic awareness, that can you hear the differences in sounds, and then the phonics skills, can you sound words out? So our second grade students, I selected them for our school because they've had the most interesting collection of learning opportunities because of the pandemic. Some of the children who were with us in kindergarten had a possible 9 different versions of kindergarten, depending on when they joined us, whether they were able to be online it all year, if their parents needed them to have that, or did they need to have a combination thereof, and it got weird. And when you are learning to hear the differences between things over Zoom and you're 5, my teachers are extraordinary, but there's just some things that are not great over Zoom. So our current second graders have had the most interesting opportunities for education. And so that you know, with iReady, you have your typical growth, which means if a kid has the goal, which is determined by the software experience, and you make your typical growth, yay, you learned a year's amount in a year's time. Not good enough for my students who have multiple languages, because they are not performing anywhere near where we would like them to be, nor like their monolingual English only peers. We need them to hit that stretch goal, which is more than a year's growth in a year's time. So to make that happen, Van, we are going to, I'm working with my second grade teachers who have students who qualify for the ML program, along with Candace Robinson, who we get to have just as our own ML teacher. And we are going to work on adjusting instruction. What can we do during the core time? And what can we do to fit some of these other little pieces in throughout the little pockets of the day so that we can make a difference? Now, elevation, I'm imagining Maggie Evans, through her other conversations with you, has talked about this, is where the assessments that we use for our multilingual kids while the data is housed, it actually gives some instructional ideas. So we're going to use that together and with our second grade teachers who have ML students, along with the classroom-based assessments, like what have we taught and how have you learned it, friend? And some of the iReady things to put this all together to get the best possible outcome for our students who are multilanguage learners in second grade. And the second goal is also related to ELA. Again, we haven't had learning loss, because if you had something, you had it. If you never got it, it's a gap or a lack of learning opportunity. So our first and second graders are still impacted from what's happened the last couple of years. And specific to phonics, all of my first grade students who are performing in the red zone, it's 2 or 3 years behind where they typically should be performing. The number of children who are in the red zone, we're going to reduce that number by 90%. And for our kiddos in second grade who are in that red zone 2 or 3 years behind where we expect them to be, 75% reduction of that. I'm not worried in the least about my first grade. They're going to get there. So over the last 6 years, that's not going to be a heavy lift for my first grade kids or my first grade teachers. Second grade, we've never reduced it by more than 53%. So this is a heck of a lift for our second grade students and their teachers. I'm thinking that pair that with what we're doing with our multilanguage learners, that's the extra boost. So my teachers who already have students who qualify for the ML program, they're already getting what we can do for this pocket of people. Let's expand it to everybody in their class. So that is one of the ways that we're going to help the second graders make a significant growth. Please, Van. And we're using the science of reading. You've heard Maggie talk about it. You've heard Kelly and I talk about the science of reading. So that knowledge is not just for your intervention, extra, my struggling kid time, whatever I need time. It's for the core instruction. So we need to hit the core instruction in a way where the kids, the things that we're teaching right now, we're scooping everybody up who might be on the fringes of not quite getting it. They need a little bit boost to really get the new learning. And we need to use this to get our kids who've got these holes in their reading learning. So we're going to use that science of reading for that purpose. In addition, we're going to focus our win time instruction on phonics, and it's specific to the individual level at that point. Like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Oh, the 3 of you need the same thing, but the 3 of you need something slightly different. And how am I going to, as the instructor, manage that in the same 30 minutes? That's what we're focusing our actions on to help all of first grade and all of second grade gain more in their phonics reading.
Wow.
Thank you. And then our social emotional learning. So as was shared with you earlier this year, the day before school started, a couple of days before school started, we realized none of the children, none of the 500 whatever children have ever eaten in the cafeteria. That's not cool.
Wow.
You know, because our kindergarten teachers teach them how to eat in the cafeteria. Our second grade teachers are like, can we borrow those postcards? We don't know how to do that either. And the first day of school, they're coming in from the buses and from parent drop off, and you all have to go get your card with your name on it. And then go through the lunch line to get your breakfast. Oh, it was a nightmare, but we came out okay. Everyone was fed and watered, no one was lost. But this brings me to the point about common areas. So many of our children had not shared hallways, bus lines, the cafeteria, segments of the playground. They had not all used as hundreds of children together because we had to keep distances. We had to keep those contact tracing lists. So all of our common areas were a new experience together.
Wow.
So the expectation is that we are going to have set expectations and posted and teach the kids about the common areas. The second part to that is having our adults correct kids fluently when the kids are not following those expectations. Please, Van. And that's the long and ugly part of it. When basically it says, we have developed between August and October, we've developed our common area expectations. We did it in chunks to make sure that it was right, came back and checked. Yep, that's really what we want them to do. And then we've been working on having us practice correcting fluently. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for children who are easy and children who are difficult? And we have some time set up where we're having the foundations team go and observe in some of our common areas. What are they seeing? What do we need to teach differently? Danny and I are looking at the common area data through Skyward when people have misstepped enough that they actually had to be written up for discipline. And we're going to take a look at the October data and then compare that to the January data and later on to see, is it making a difference? Are there fewer infractions? Are our students following what the expectations are? And are the staff members correcting them such that we're getting the results that we want? Ta-da! Questions, ideas?
I think I just learned a lot. The taking for granted of
Yes.
the lunchroom, and nobody's been there for the whole school. That's. I mean, it makes perfect sense as you describe it, but I wouldn't have done that.
We didn't think about it until we before school. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Resources, so adding these other programs and additional, touch points and to help kids through the process, whether it's phonics or any of those foundational skills. Right? I know we've made some investments there. Are you feeling like that's paying off?
Absolutely. And like some of the things that Joey has had us do through our Science of Reading Learning, it is taking some things we already have in classrooms and repurposing them. There were a collection of items from classrooms that other people have moved out of over the years that became a large collection of like math manipulatives, all kinds of linking together cubes. They were not the good colors, or they were slightly whatever. And I had Diane Fast, our instructional coach, go through them. Joey's gone through them, pulling what she can use for her groups. So we still have a mound that would fit between these tables of really cool things that nobody thought they needed. So Joey started bringing out, hey, you could use these linking cubes this way. You could use this way. Here are these foam tiles you could use this way. So it is repurposing, seeing something in a new light. And then there's other things where you're putting gooey jelly stuff in really good Ziploc bags and drawing with your fingers on it. It's a real tactile experience, which does a bunch of stuff for the brain. And it's really cool. And it costs like, $1 to make.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So all the things you guys have been investing in, we are still using, and we're using them differently now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Question.
I think you keep up the great work.
Will do.
Thank you much.
Hey, Kelly.
Right, so our first goal is focusing on our English language arts area. So reading and writing, reading specifically. Trying to increase again that number of students falling in that red category. So that being those kids that are more than a year below where we expect them to be. So we want to get that number less than 100. Currently, it is at 188 kids. That's a significant amount.
40%.
That same thing we're targeting. What came out of the last couple of years. So some things we're going to do to help work around that. One thing that we've been doing, you've heard some about, the big darn deal is really focusing in on our PLC work. What do we want our kids to know? What do they need to know and be able to do? And then how are we going to, if they know it or don't know it? And then what do we do if they do? And what do we do if they don't? So we've got some extensive work we've been doing around identifying essential standards. So we have our state standards. What are the most essential ones that carry the most leverage that's going to take them that they need in order to build on those skills or that they're going to need for life in general? Other things are good to know. We're still teaching that stuff, but we're really focusing our intervention on those most essential, most important and critical standards. And then planning our lessons to tie closely to those standards. And then we're developing proficiency skills to help us assess exactly how we know if they know it. And we're even adjusting a little bit of how we're teaching around that, because I think Amy touched on this, is that as we focus on those essential standards, we're noticing that if we have a bulk of kids missing that skill for whatever reason, that might not be an intervention thing. It might move into our core. We might spend more time in our core instruction with that than we have done historically pre-COVID, because it's not a simple intervention skill for a small group. Lots of our kids are needing it. We are seeing that in some skill areas. And then just really focusing on developing really good lessons and units around that. And then trying to determine what those gaps are. And our iReady system helps us assign really targeted lessons for wherever they're missing those skills. Aside from what we're doing in core instruction, we can really target those missing pieces in iReady. And then, as we're always doing, monitor and adjust along the way with our planning and assessments. So our next goal is tied to that. Focusing in on a group of kids. Of course, we're doing that all across the board for all of our kids, but really zoning in on, again, our multilingual kids. Amy and I didn't partner on this, just how it felt. There's lots of groups that we could pick to target on, of course. So, but looking at our multilingual data, decided to target it in on those kids. A lot of our multilingual kids are at such a level that they also would qualify for our Title Lab program. So trying to see how we can give that support. So what we're really focusing on skill-wise there to help improve their ALA is the engagement piece and trying to really double that amount of engagement. It's a tricky thing to measure because we do that through observation in our planning, but we're going for it because we know that if kids aren't engaged, then, you know, it's hard to learn if you're not actually engaged in what you're doing and actively excited about it. So ways that we have done that, you might remember us in the past talking about our structured student talk. Rochester had our signature methods of real structured, focused academic conversation that kids have when they're working. I talked one of our meetings a while back. We actually have a Kagan trainer on site in our building who's a third grade teacher. So she supports, our coach supports that. And then there's just other engagement strategies that maybe don't fall under RSD structure or Kagan, but they're great ways to engage kids. So really, we're doing that. We're trying to build that up everywhere, but really putting an extra focus on supporting our multilingual teacher in that, who teaches the intervention for those kids, as well as the classrooms that have clusters of multilingual kids in there, and giving extra support to those teachers as well. And then another strategy underneath that is obviously attendance. We want them to be here.
Yeah.
They can't be engaged if they're not here. So really focusing in on targeted attendance. Of course, we're doing that all across the board as well, but really planning some interventions for those kiddos if they're not attending. And then our last focus again is, as with the primary, is in the area of cell. So trying to really look closely at our DESA data. DESA stands for Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment. So there's a mini DESA we do that's like 8 quick questions that a teacher just answers herself about how she knows about her kids. And then it'll put kids in a certain category and helps us decide, do we need to go a little deeper to know those kids better? And so that's what the full DESA is. So looking at those full DESA kids, we make plans. And so our counselor focuses in with teachers around those kids that show a need under the full DESA. And then she plans small groups specific to what their social emotional need is, and sometimes individual as well. So one thing she did last year that she's adjusted was, she pulled these kids into groups, and then she learned that some kids they don't like groups. They don't want to work in groups. So she realized I need to work with that kid individually to teach them how to work in groups, because eventually we got to do that in life. And so she kind of backed up. So just always monitoring and adjusting, but then also working with that classroom teacher around, you've got these 4 kids that can really benefit from this. Here's what I'm doing. So here's some ideas you might be able to do in class that will benefit all, but also support this group of kids. And then we also have implemented or working on a PBIS system throughout our school. Big focus on common areas like Amy described. Same lunchroom problem in our building. They did lunch once upon a time down there, but it's a whole different building here and a different system.
Yeah.
So and then quite frankly, for adults too, we had to relearn it. How did we do that? And can we do it better than we did before? So to make expectations super clear for kids, that's what they need. That security that helps them have some normalcy, that helps us out. So, and then just teachers are teaching digital cell lessons through the curriculum that we have. And foundations teamwork, Amy touched a little bit on, but you're going to get a lot more detailed information in January at the board meeting from what I understand. So,
okay.
Lots going on, trying to support our kiddos and along the way. Any questions about any of that?
On the ELA achievement, you're about 40% or 38% or so, 188, 500, I think we're at the level. Is that spread relatively evenly across grades 3, 4, 5, or are some grades impacted?
I don't have that right in front of me. There's a little hit and miss. Percentage wise, it's not too far off.
That's the same. Yeah.
Our 4th grade numbers are about 45, 50 kids more than 3rd and 5th. We have a very heavy 4th grade. But percentage wise, we're very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're targeting, trying to get down to that.
Yeah.
0 would be the goal, but 20% is kind of where we were pre-pandemic.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that's obviously if we can exceed that goal, that's great.
Yeah.
But some of those kids are 20. Some of those kids are 2 or 3 years behind grade level. Some are just 1.
Yeah.
So when we look at that focus group, so these kids are on the red zone, which is 1 year or more, but the second goal that's focused
1 year,
around
2 years,
ML kids are multilingual kids. Those kids are all those kids in that group are 2 or 3 years below grade level. So that's what drove us to kind of really focus on that group for this goal. Again, we're working with all of them.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like that really jumped out at us as these kids this batch of kids are 2 to 3 years behind. So. Any other questions?
Yeah. So how many children are in each classroom at this time?
So in my 3rd grade, most of them have 20 or 21. In 2nd grade, there's 21 4th grade, there's 21 or 22. I was and then in 5th grade, we're at 26 in almost every 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are you grouping more of these kids that are more than 2 years behind in certain groups where they can get more access to instruction?
Yes. So the kids during at our building, we have an intervention hour time. So every kid gets, that's that win time that Amy talks about, what I need time. So every kid gets, that's where we focus on what is their intervention. So some students with IEPs go see a special ed teacher or support person. Some students receiving multilingual support through that certified teacher, they leave for half an hour to go work directly with that teacher. And some go to Title Lab groups for reading support. And like some of those multilingual kids qualify for both of those services. And then that's also like when our high cap services happen. So during that time, back in the classroom, kids are still there. Those teachers are doing intervention as well. All the certified teachers are also focusing in on what these kids need. So really the entire building is giving as individualized support, but it may be happening in groups of kids who have like needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we have large groups of kids that are at certain levels and, trying to get them all up together at the same time.
Yes.
And then we have the few that are actually doing it, and I commend all you guys for addressing the learning loss, and these testings are what's going to bring this stuff to our attention. And you got enough teachers, you got enough support staff, everything you guys need, or is there anything we can do to help make it go faster? I mean, you got lofty goals, and I really appreciate
You have
that.
lofty goals.
We're shooting back the moon.
Wait, absolutely.
What happens is we don't make an amazing goal when we get close to it. Sweet.
I love it.
Our kids need us to have lofty goals.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm okay, boss, if we miss the mark. I'd much rather have larger goals and I didn't create these goals all by myself. Our staff did.
Mhm.
And they agree, we much rather have lofty goals. And if we miss a mark, we miss a mark. But when you set your benchmark high or your mark high and you try to shoot for it, you're going to get as far as you get. And then we monitor and adjust. Okay, what worked really well? And then what do we need to go back and revisit? So
Wonderful.
yeah, no, teachers, everybody's working hard. We have great folks. So we're confident we'll get there and reflect along the way and at the end of the year and set ourselves up for next year to do it all over again.
We're all in this together.
Absolutely.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Do you know that? That's actually a thing we say when we're planning. That's a real.
Really?
Absolutely. We know. We talk about it all the time.
Now you get indoctrinated.
Here, we're
Issues.
That.
Yeah, I guess somehow she's gotten that across. Welcome, Will.
I will.
Good evening, everybody.
You're up.
Oh, okay, hey, I'm up. Our first goal, and yeah, I love sometimes following Amy and following,
We didn't even talk about this.
that's what I'm saying, following Amy and following Kelly can really be a benefit to me, being at the middle school, because they talk about some of the things that I want to talk about, and I may end up being a little bit shorter, or things may have been explained to you a whole lot better than I would have done otherwise. So it works out quite well for me. Our first goal is that RMS Latino Hispanic students will show typical or better growth on their reading iReady scores in the spring benchmark of 2023 versus the fall 2022 scores. So basically, in a nutshell, what we're talking about is we know that there is a learning gap between Hispanics, Latino students, and our all students and our Caucasian students. And we want to work to close that achievement gap. And one of the efforts that we're going to be putting in order to make that happen is this goal, utilizing these strategies that are here. So pre-reading strategies for informational text. Again, we're working to help our kids to understand some of that kind of stuff, the stuff you get in a science class, the stuff you get in a social studies class. So while literature is important as well, quite often what we find with folks that are either new to the language or maybe growing up in a home where another language other than English is being spoken, is that you don't hear a lot of the ologies and the isms and those kinds of things. And so you may be extremely conversational, but when you start talking about complex academic language, it's not there. And so when a teacher starts spouting off complex academic language, you can leave people behind. And so we're going to work very, very hard at vocabulary and at pre-reading strategies in order to help students to not be left behind and to move further up. We're doing some during and post-reading summarizing. So by the during part, I mean that we're not necessarily waiting until the end of a page to say, summarize this page. We're stopping at the end of a paragraph and talking about what's the most important word or phrase that you saw in that paragraph. All right, next one. What was the most important word or phrase that you saw in that paragraph? And then when you get through with 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs, you can run through what will be your summary instead of having to go hunt for through the whole page. Again, trying to break things down in chunks is really good for anyone who's struggling in any subject area. And so, while this targets specific, while our goal is targeting our Hispanic Latino students, and certainly will help with our language learners, it will also help our students who have disabilities. It will also help our students who are behind by a couple of grade levels. This will help our students who have grown up in poverty, and we know that they've been exposed to a whole lot less vocabulary and less content language over the course of a lifetime. And so we're working to try to help all of that. So we'll be doing that with during and post reading summarizing, and then spending a lot of time working on vocabulary. As a matter of fact, all of our teachers, all of them. So we talk about all of our teachers are reading teachers. All of our teachers are going to be getting some vocabulary training coming up at our next try. So they're going to get over an hour of specific strategy training to utilize vocabulary to move our kids forward. So it's a big darn deal. And I'm going to skip already outside class time and move forward. Don't worry. I'll come back to it. Goal 2, RMS students will show growth on their iReady Spring 2023 math benchmark versus the fall. Notice the theme here. We are utilizing iReady as our way of determining progress or success. That is our assessment measure for all of our students. So both language arts and math, and in this case, math, because we know coming out of the pandemic, how much that really hit our students' math skills. How certainly reading was hindered by the utilization of Zoom and kids not being in school and that sort of thing. Math was hindered even more. So you look at national, you look at state, math numbers are way down. We're going to focus on everybody with math. Move on, Justin. Thank you. And we're utilizing something called data chats. We have actually already started teachers sitting down one-on-one with students and having a conversation about areas that they're struggling in, areas that they're really successful in, and areas and opportunities for growth. Having those conversations with parents during conference time. We had some of those tough conversations with families. And hey, we need to be moving forward on this. Here's some of the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to have an after-school math academy in January. We've targeted a number of students. We're going to have about 40 of our students in school. At school, after school for an extra hour a day, twice a week. So they're going to get 7 or 8 extra sessions to try to help them in some specific areas where you talked about groups of kids that are in kind of a similar boat. Well, we've got these groups of kids that we've identified that are in similar boats. And so we're going to bring them in there for 7 or 8 hours during the month of January. We're going to help them along. It's not going to be a place where they're going to get a whole bunch of homework or anything like that. They're going to get some help while they're there, learning some skills so that they can be more successful during their day. And I'm talking about iReady outside class time. So pass those around for me. Okay, so I talked last time about skipping iReady, and I'm right here to iReady on this one, so I can talk about both of them at the same time. One of our big darn deals with the middle school is we are trying to motivate middle school age kids to put in some extra effort. And we know that, our school runs 7:30 to 2:10 every day, and we can have the after school academy, and we look forward to doing that. But boy, if we could get kids to do more work outside of the school day, that might really be a benefit. And we know that iReady has been a very successful program to helping kids to grow in both math and reading. And so we put together a motivational race to progress to try to get kids to work on these kinds of lessons outside of the school day, try to get them to put in some extra time. I can tell you that we have been doing this for a little less than a month now. And between Carrie Black, Jen Littlefield, myself, Todd Tibet, and 2 other folks, they're doing a bunch of work Kids have done hundreds of hours already of extra time. We have over 50, about 50% of our students that have done 5 lessons already. And a lesson takes 15, 20 minutes to successfully pass for most kids. And iReady targets lessons at your level. So you've done a benchmark in the fall. It figures out roughly where you are and it gives you a path toward success. And so you start taking your assignments, your lessons in that path. And so basically we are encouraging kids to do a lot of extra work on their own, and they're doing it, and we love it. When I have kids coming to me regularly now saying, "Hey, Mr. Moss, I passed lesson 5 today," or "I passed lesson 10 today." Okay, that might sound a little whatever, but I want you to think about this. I have 12-year-olds walking up to the principal to let the principal know that they spent an hour outside of school getting 2 or 3 more lessons done. That's awesome. I'm a fan. So that is work that we're doing. Kids are getting credit for both reading or math combined. So whichever one they do, or both of them, we'll combine them. You can see a list of things that we're doing there. Our booster club is helping fund some of these items, and we're having a blast. So that's what's going on. Oh, I should probably go to the next one. Somebody else did that, because this is not just a throwaway kind of thing. We've talked a bit about social emotional learning, and our goal for goal 3 is that students will increase their social emotional learning self-awareness skills through this year as measured by DESA fall and spring. I don't have to talk about DESA now. Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Grades, write-ups, and attendance. And what's happening there is we are really focusing on things like intent versus impact. What are kids? Be aware of the kinds of things that you're doing, the kinds of things that you're saying, how you're acting, those sorts of things. Recognizing we all have an intent, but we also all have an impact. And those are not necessarily the same thing. And one of the things that I love, Justin, if you move on. Okay. So we're delivering SEL curriculum in classrooms, and we have counselors who've created these lessons. They're teaching some of these lessons to all of our students. The grade level teachers are teaching some of these lessons to all of our students, and they're teaching them in a relatively compact period of time so that everyone knows that within a few weeks, everyone in that grade level has gotten this lesson. So now if you skip down to 3, you can integrate conversations within your class, because it doesn't matter what period you have, that your 7th graders have all gotten this lesson by now. So they can use some of that language. They can use some of those skills. You can refer to some of those skills. I have numerous times, including twice today, worked with kids and parents on kids' intent versus impact. I did this. This is what I thought was going to happen. This is what really happened. And we can have those conversations. Some folks need some more intensive time, so they get some small group time with our wonderful counselors who, again, kind of like folks mentioned, sometimes have to work one-on-one with those folks and sometimes can work with them in small groups. And now that's what's going on at the middle school. Fine, Don.
Awesome. That's a lot. I think the trend continues here. So the strategy for maintaining the goal or the same growth as prior. Kids might be behind where they were last year, but we're trying to make sure they're not slipping any further behind and starting to get that incremental growth forward.
And that's why we're saying typical or better.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not just typical. And we really would love to see what iReady call stretch growth.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
This is a great program. Sounds like it's.
We'd like to see them do their best, and we'd like to see what their best is. Because I think too often it's, sometimes I get kids that want to just click buttons and do that sort of thing. And if we can motivate those kids to give it their best effort, that's how we'll know where they're at. So we can figure out what group they need to be in, so we can really help them.
Right.
Similar to the other answers previously, how many kids right now are at least 2 years below level in the middle school right now?
I don't know the exact number for you, but I can get that.
Well, I'm glad we decided to stick with this iReady because it seems like it's something really working well in our district. I remember when we were looking at getting the funding for it a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, let's do this. So wonderful. Thank you.
So I want to recognize that I think Thomas has been able to join us now. So
Welcome, Thomas.
Thomas, please, if you, as we continue, if you have questions, comments, just jump in.
I will. Thank you.
Michael, welcome.
Well, hi, everybody. So thank you. And Ashton, you can help me out, bring a little energy.
Okay.
With me.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So tonight I was going to talk a little bit about our overview. So our focus this year was really to strengthen students' belonging, support, and address academic needs, right? And that's a typical school improvement plan effort. But this year was really important as we came out of the previous 2 years that we really focus on students' ability to critically read and write. So when we created our goals, we really wanted to be intentional because we have a lot of new systems and programs being developed in our district. So we wanted to be thoughtful about trying to blend those into the different goals that our departments have. So teachers weren't feeling too stretched and they were feeling like both of them were manageable. So with that being said, you can go to the next slide there, right? Goal number 1 and goal number 2 are very similar. So goal number 1 and goal number 2 both hit on the ability to critically read and write. Our critical reading is in foundational stages, and I'll chat about that in a second. But our critical writing has been led by our ELA department for quite some time now. So right now in our school building, 14% of all of our students are meeting standard. This standard is a junior level standard. So obviously there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores who might not be meeting that standard right now. But we only have 14% that are meeting standard based upon a common formative assessment. Now, this is one assessment that was given at one time, so we don't necessarily know how valid those results are. But as we give more assessments and teachers do more things, we'll start to see the true number of students who show their abilities. But for their first benchmark, that's where the students were at. The next one. So obviously a big portion of that is even developing a benchmark and then how to score it, and then making sure that all those professionals are scoring that benchmark a similar way for all kids. So you don't have one teacher saying, oh, these kids are great, and another teacher saying, none of these kids have passed anything, right? So they need to calibrate, and that's a professional activity in and itself. They are into our critical reading side of things. Our social studies department is really taking on the critical reading aspect. And when I say critical reading, I mean the ability to take a complex document and really understand what it says, right? And we do that all day long, every day, but somebody had to teach us how to do that because it's not necessarily the easiest thing. It's in the very first foundational stages. Our social studies department is a great place to start because they're reading things like the Articles of Confederation and all sorts of historical documents. And they are developing something that we can hopefully use school-wide within the coming years. But it's got to start somewhere, and it's got to start with a group of professionals who are really invested in that idea. For our writing, what happens with our critical writing is the students take their assessments, and then they are broken down by strands, and then teachers develop interventions based upon the students' needs. Right. So this goal is school-wide. So usually that's broken down into purpose and organization, evidence and elaboration, voice and conventions, which would be aligned with some of their end of the year exams as well, and then the Common Core state standards. And what they do is they look for example, they might see all students are struggling with elaboration. So they will create an intervention for all students to increase elaboration scores. And then they also break down this data into subgroups, subpopulations, students with who identify having special needs, students who identify needing additional supports, are multilingual students, and then they tailor interventions to whichever population they need to tailor interventions to. Next one. So goal 2 is the same goal, except we are really focusing on 9th and 10th grade students as they enter into our system. So roughly only 10% of our students are meeting that standard. And the interventions that their feeling is the interventions that they're going to have to apply to 9th and 10th grade students are going to be different than those that need to be applied to 11th and 12th grade students. So they're creating a smaller cohort inside that English program to help really meet the needs of a specific population of kids. So a lot of these things are still being built, right? They have the data, they're evaluating the data, they're starting to teach this information, and now they got to have another assessment to see what the growth is. So it's ongoing, right? And that's the beauty of a SIP plan. But so again, very similar actions and measures through this process. And the great thing is that they get built over time. For our final goal, you've heard me talk about this quite a bit. This is the ability to increase students' sense of belonging. So this is like the classroom visits I'm conducting, and then just hearing what kids like, and then doing something with it, and having these class meetings. And I would, only thing I'd like to build upon that is we're well on our way. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I had a meeting with our leadership class who has agreed to assist me. That was one of the actions that we had to do, was bring the leadership students along. The leadership students are going to assist with essentially running class meetings and really breaking down, if this is the one thing or the two or the three things that your class would like to see improved, you got to do the work to get those improvements, right? So it's not just you give your input and then hands off. You actually have to do some things to convince people, or to build agency around it, or change around it. And that's just the way change works in our society. And it's a good way for us to model how you as an individual can bring forth some really monumental changes. Something else I'd like to highlight in this big long list of things is we have departments whose goals really fit into this really well. So they've tailored their goals to increase student self-reflection, cultural awareness, self-efficacy, and leadership. So our CTE department, world language departments, physical education departments, they have identified this as their place to really see student growth. And they've tailored their actions with their department to just help more kids develop in a really healthy way. Some other really cool things in there, we're trying to hold our first multicultural event for our Latinx students and families. That's being organized by our ELL department and the RISE program. And then all of our staff professional development this year is really targeted around social emotional learning through very thoughtful instructional design. So we have Aaron Rowe, who's the department head for English, leading all that work. And we're really trying to get this needle to move, and we're really excited. I would like to say I'm really thankful for my colleagues and Dr. Bethman and everybody at this table who sat and read these SIPs and provided us feedback, because they're in a really good spot going into the year and helping staff and students achieve their best. Questions?
I like it.
That looks good. The percentages, so for the ELA and social science, assume you get those from testing. The percentage on sense of belonging, is that from a survey or?
Yeah, so when I go in to go meet with kids, they have 5 or 6 questions, and I walk through like a presentation with them. We talk about, what do they want to see change? What should we stop doing? And what should we keep doing, right? And then there's 2 other questions that say, do you feel like you belong here? And we ask, and I define that for kids as, do you have an activity, a club, a sport, a group of friends, somebody here that you're like, every day it's like, at least I can go to this class, at least I can go to this program, to Equity League, at least I can do, whatever it is that really draws me here. So that's the question we ask them. And then the final question is, do you feel like you have the voice to make change? And some kids leave their names and some kids don't. It's optional, but for the kids who leave their names, they've essentially signed themselves up for some really good stuff here in a minute when we start getting down to the student level data and how do we help these kids who left their names but also don't feel like they belong.
Yeah. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions from Thomas? Thanks. So.
Not currently.
Okay, next we have our superintendent report.
All right. So just some updates about what's going on and what's happening in and around the district. Thank you. First of all, I wanted to take us back just over a month ago. We had the Veterans Day assemblies out in all of our buildings, and they were very well received, and the kids did a great job. One of the, I'm sorry, this correction, I made a correction here, and it did not make the correction on this screen, so I apologize for that first bullet there. But our RPS students they were invited after they performed at their school to go and perform for the Chehalis tribe at their Veterans Day Assembly. There was a tribal member in the audience who saw it and was just so moved by the kids that we had the Veterans Day Assembly on Thursday. And then that evening they were invited to come. And so it was something that went out on Facebook and then through school messenger. And we had probably 50, 60 kids who showed up at the Chehalis tribes whose parents brought them, and they repeated their performance of some of their songs for the veterans from the Chehalis tribe. So that was a very neat ceremony. And you can see pictures of the kids. The right two pictures there are the kids performing for the veterans there. I also want to note just the Scatter Creek Food Drive. We're still waiting for an outcome on who won. But we had a lot of kids got very involved in that, as well as first student bringing the bus out to help collect food. It just was a really good project, and good things were happening there. And the kids were, it's really good to see our kids helping our community. And then I wanted to note that our Peach Jar, the flyers, they go live officially tomorrow. It officially went live today, but they will be sent out tomorrow.
Awesome.
So first ones will be out. The other thing I want to note for you is that tomorrow night, there's a holiday concert at the middle school. And then next week on the 15th, there's a holiday concert at the high school. That's actually a 7 p.m. concert time. So that, man, don't you love it when you make corrections and then it did not stick? I don't know what happened here, but the holiday concert at the no, they're both at 7. They're both at 7. Yeah. So they're both at 7 p.m. Encourage you to go. These kids have been working hard and they're going to be great holiday concerts to go and watch. All right. Next, just a few academic updates from work that's going on throughout the district. The PLC at Work project that we've been working on. You heard mention of it in our SIP plans, where teachers are working hard and our administrators are working hard to identify, like you've heard, the priority standards are, what does achievement of our priority standards look like? When we see a kid that's being successful, what does that actually look like? So making sure that we've identified that. We are attending sessions now on developing unit plans and working on common formative assessments so that we're assessing students similarly from classroom to classroom. And we're building unit plans together as a staff so that then we can identify when students aren't learning, have conversations with our staff. What are we going to do now that these students aren't learning, and how are we going to work together as a team to make some differences in the planning that we're doing? The same thing goes with our kids who are being successful. How are we going to enhance the work that they're doing and provide them some extension to their learning? So a lot of really good work going on. Our PLCs, they're really coming together, and we've part of the work here was we had an outside observer come in and watch the PLCs, and he's seeing really good things going on with our teachers working in their PLCs on Fridays. And spending time really focusing on what students are learning and looking at the data from what they're collecting in classrooms. Our inclusionary practices work that we're doing to really increase the amount of time that our special needs students and all of our students are being included in our general ed classrooms. That work's continuing today. Laura took a trip with, Amy was going to go, but she wasn't able to go, but Nicole Kermit and Kelsey went. And I think there was one other who went, but they went up and visited a school in Highline who's been doing some inclusionary practices work for a long time and wanted to see it in action so that they can bring back some of the strategies and share that with us. So we're going to be learning from them when they come back, but still a focus in the work and in the work that we're doing. And then the dual language task force visited 3 schools. That was almost a month ago. No,
2 weeks ago, maybe.
Oh, time is a blur, right? So we went up north and visited 3 schools. We observed classrooms. We talked to the teams in the buildings about what did it take to set up these programs. We had many of our questions answered. It was a really good experience to go up and learn and see the programs in action, and just start to really think about what it will look like when we start a program in Rochester. We still don't have a plan as to exactly when we will start or what exactly our program will look like. We still have work to do, which is why I put that last bullet on there, which is the NABE conference, which is National Association of Bilingual Education. And it's like they knew that we were doing this work this year, because that is a really huge conference and it's typically, somewhere, right? Well, this year it's in Portland.
Nice.
So we are taking a team down. It's in February and we're taking a team down to learn and, become better prepared to make the decisions that we need to make. So we're excited about that. Other thing I want to note is just all the volunteerism that's been going on in the district. Lately, there's a lot of things happening. I noted the students in the food drive. We also had, you might see down the bottom right there on the left, Thomas, yep.
Nice.
The local 3825 West Thurston Regional Fire Authority brought in coats for kids. And they brought in a lot of coats for our kids. And you can see them there. We had a Thurston County community organization for the Love Foundation. They provided 50 Thanksgiving meals for our students. And that's for our families. That's what those red bags are. They were complete Thanksgiving meals and they just did a wonderful time. The families actually signed a big sign for the organization, and that was shared back with the organization, and they were very appreciative of the messages that the families left for them.
Nice.
And then Roof right now is underway with Operation Santa, where people throughout the community are coming together to provide some resources for Christmas for kids and families that are in need this holiday season. So caring community that we live in. Need to note just a little bit about the lockdown that we experienced on November 22nd. Like I've talked to some of you, boy, you get that phone call and there's no worse phone call to get. Mike did a great job with his team, flying into action. And that's what that first bullet says was, the response was quick, and it was quick with our, all the sheriffs and the police and everybody who came. But the first response was our staff, and they responded as they were supposed to. They went into a lockdown. They did what they needed to do. And they did it correctly. So that was really, really important. I listed a bunch of things up here that we had actually talked about as we debriefed. The incident happened on the 22nd, which was a Tuesday. We then had school on Wednesday, a half day for Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving. And then we came back on the Monday. When we got back from Thanksgiving, we did a debrief. And so these bullets were some of the things that really came to the forefront. We're going to continue to work and refine our practices and learn from this experience. But like I said, the response was really quick. We had a new phone system in the district, and the phone system ended up working. We have things to learn about the phone system that could kind of go on both, things to learn and things that worked. But it was a good system to have, and we even know how to ask more questions about that system and what it will do for us. Communication. Lots of comments that the communication was good, and then some questions about communication, especially when we went down to the elementary, and could we have done some of our communication differently with the schools who weren't involved in the immediate situation. I will say that I think when we are communicating in a situation like this, my focus will always be to communicate first with the families who are in the schools that are directly and immediately in the situation where there's a threat and there's something we want to communicate about. We need to make sure we're communicating with the rest of our community as well. But the immediate and quick responses will be to the families with the kids in the schools where we know there's a potential threat. Want to note that our SRO was there. He was the first one in the building and he didn't hesitate at all to walk in. I mean, quickly there was other law enforcement there with him, but he really was quick and in the building as fast as he could be. Some of the things that we need to work on is really defining lockdown versus modified lockdown. And it's been a while, just like we haven't had our kids in the cafeteria for a long time. You know, we haven't, with our families, haven't had to do lockdowns and modified lockdowns. And even with some of our kids, we've been practicing them, but it wasn't even December yet when we had this. So I'm really defining the difference between them and what are our protocols, how do our protocols differ between those two, and then communicating that not just with our students and our staff, but also our families. Keys, that was something we learned, and it was something that Ed jumped on really quick, and we've already rectified, but making sure we have the keys that we need in our lockbox and they're all where they need to be. We had what we needed on that day, but now we're going to even be better prepared, and we were able to, it was just something that you don't necessarily check on a regular basis. And so everything's now been checked there. The timing, that's there because it was really interesting and something we hadn't thought about with an incident like that happening. What happens when elementary is dropping off? I mean, it was exactly the same. It was exactly the same time all of our families were either dropping off or just finishing dropping off when we put everybody in lockdown. And so that meant that not only did we have families still dropping some kids off, but then we had families that were still driving through from the elementaries through the high school to get out of our campus area. So just something else that we need to think about in our response. And then made us, one more time start thinking about when are we going to get that video entry system? And so with that, if we go to the next slide.
Could we pause
Yeah,
a second?
sorry.
I just wanted to thank you. First, thank God this was a false
Yes.
alarm, and it gave us opportunity to kind of go through these procedures and everyone did an amazing job, like you and your staff, students. Shauna, you did a great job. I mean, I feel as a board member calling us to let us know, hey, this is what's going on. As a parent, same time I was getting notifications through the system, that parent of a high schooler, that was, I thought was really well communicated, well coordinated throughout. And I'm glad you're going through this process. There's lessons learned, opportunities to improve the process.
I wanted to point out something, and I'm probably talking out of turn, I'm okay with that.
We are too.
Morning was really very interesting learning morning. I learned something about our new superintendent that there's no way you can interview for. It was the morning that we all were supposed to be here having a meeting. And we get here within a few minutes of one another. So as I'm pulling into the parking lot, thinking my thoughts, I see Dr. Bethman leaving. I'm thinking, guess somebody else is running the meeting today. So I'd like to point out that she could have stayed here.
Yeah.
She could have stayed away, but she drove there. And I want to point out something else that makes me a little verklempt. My kiddo is 26. I don't need to worry about her lockdowns. However, I have staff members who had kids. We all had staff members who had kids at the high school.
Right.
And you wouldn't have known it because they kept their cool, including people here who have sweet babies there, who ran the rest of us how we needed to be run. But I wanted to point it out. It does make me teary, and that's okay. Here I am. They kept it together. Their children, their students never knew. You would not have known that Justin's little girl was there, that Jill's little girl was there, that Laura's kids were there. You would not have known. And I think sometimes parents who were very upset with us at our building because bang, bang on the door, let me have my kids. Our people are taking care of your babies. Let us do our jobs.
Yeah.
I wanted to point that out that doesn't show up in an interview. And these people are amazing who had their kids there and kept it together.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep. Good, great point. Got me going now. No, it really well executed, and hopefully we never ever have to do it again. But thank you.
Yeah. So Video entry system. This, Ed and Justin are gonna kind of talk about both the video entry system, where we are, what needs to be done still with our fencing, and then we've had some theft incidents that kind of all wrap into this. So, Ed and Justin, we're gonna give us a little bit.
I'll do bullet point one, things are still in back order. Yeah, I know, there is, it's chips, right? It's chipsets. So, my guess is once, car lots are full of new cars, we'll have our new systems, right? Type thing, but, there is a school, so to speak, in the queue ahead of us. They still have not received, they were about a month ahead of us, in ordering, and they still have not received their stuff. So every day the company we're working with is checking the inventories to see if potentially someone has not picked up something, not returned, returned something, so that they can snatch them up. And they know, and I think I've told you this before, that the person that is in charge of our project from CTS lives in our community. He is trying his darndest to get his stuff. He no longer has kids in our school. His kids have all graduated, but he gets it. He understands, and he's working hard for Rochester. So, Ed?
Fencing, all of the fences at RPS, UNES, and RMS are completed. All the fences at the high school completed, with the exception of we're just pouring the concrete bases for the motor drive sets. So, and then from that point on, it'll be Justin and I getting together and getting what type of system we're going to use for school buses to access the power gate. Getting that gauge and stuff like that.
We'll wait for those.
Chips on that too, yeah.
We've learned that our fences do not only keep riffraff out, they keep riffraff in. Until they decide to run a van through a school fence. So, but that was an unfortunate incident. We've been having quite a bit of problems with fences, which go to show no matter how good your fence, people with a cutter get in and do damage. But with the fences in place, now the one thing that it does do with us, staff, public, is when those fences are closed and locked and there's somebody in there, you instantly know that they're not supposed to be there. So it helps kind of separate that. Questions?
You gonna cover the theft incident?
That's the somebody broke into the school. They had a shaved key that they got into one of our vans.
They broke into a van in the back of the compound, not actually into the building.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, they broke into the van and parked out back of the high school, and they had a shaved key, so they were able to start the vehicle. Gates were locked, so they didn't go out the front. They were so used to the backside being open. They drove out the back thinking they're just gonna drive away, and they kept driving around the fence like a steer looking for a hole in the bobblehead, and they just couldn't find it. And so eventually they just made their own hole at Hayden School. And then they smashed through the gates. Yeah. The van was recovered a few hours later. We have since replaced the locks. The doors got all tore out from where they scratched down the metal, taking a step off. We painted and relabeled the doors. You can't tell anything now. It literally, we pulled it out of the shop with wet paint and girls bowling loaded in it and away they go. Just one of the things we need those vans so much.
Yeah.
And by Monday, all the district vehicles will have GPS trackers installed on them for this situation, all 12 vehicles.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Are any of our vehicles in garages, or are they all out in the open?
So they're locked, but CTE vehicles were locked behind 2 chain link fences. It's just that with today's power tools, people cut through a fence and they go
Fast.
But yeah, like maintenance shop, we tried to lock everything up as much as we can, as much building space as we have. And all our essential rigs that are loaded with a lot of equipment, the David and Dan's tool trucks, they're always locked inside, inside an alarm system.
And see, is there anything in our budget for like putting some perimeter lighting and some sort of video surveillance to, where if somebody's trying to get through a fence, it'll actually activate
And Ed and I are trying to take care of some things. We just don't want to publicly say what we're doing.
get it. We'll talk later, but yeah,
We're taking some measures.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
for all the effort.
All right. And the last thing I have is to remind the board that there's the legislative conference, and Day on the Hill is February 26th is the conference day. We're in the afternoon from 1 to 6. There's a big meeting of board members, superintendents, leaders throughout the state at the South Puget Sound Community College. And then on February 27th, if you chose, you could spend the day on the Hill talking with legislators. If you are interested in doing those, there is a registration fee, so we just need to work with Shauna and make sure we get registered.
Okay.
I also wanted just to remind you that the legislative session begins January 9th. I am hearing more conversation from our legislators without even prompting them about the way funding takes place for rural school modernization and new building. So I think there is going to be a lot of conversation this year about that with the legislature. I don't know what that'll mean, what the actual outcome will be.
Yeah.
Special education funding's really big. The prototypical funding model, there seems to be some belief that that's not an effective way to staff, but what the outcome will be is unknown.
Yeah.
And then regionalization factors are being talked about a lot. I am working to schedule some meetings with our legislators to start to have conversations, especially about those first two bullets and the third one and the fourth one, but especially the first two. So they're hearing from us.
Great. The governor's budget is, I think 14th is supposed to be posted. So a little earlier this year.
We'll see what that one is, right? Yeah.
That's the starting point, right? So.
All right. So Jill has a budget update. This goes along with the presentation or the budget report that she shared last week, but this goes into a little bit more depth about what we saw in the report.
So starting off with student enrollment, as we know, this is what generates 90% of our funding is the kids that are in the seats in our building. So a little historical data there. Monthly, when I show you that enrollment and it's in a different type of chart, it looks like it's a much more significant changes. But as you can see, we're pretty steady. 22, 23, we're moving in the right direction still of increasing our student FTEs. So that's a good thing that we're moving in that direction after the pandemic. So this is a new concept for the board members sitting here at the table. We haven't seen this in a while. But you can see our general fund ending fund balance historically over the last several years. And from 2020 to 2021 to the 21-22 school year, we actually used 2.6 million of our fund balance. So we dropped significantly from 5.5 to 2.8. So using that 2.6 million of our fund balance. And that's okay. We're still within our means. 21-22 school year was a hard year. Our kids were coming back after a pandemic. They needed those resources. So I'm not setting an alarm, but we need to be aware that this is where our fund balance is so we can move forward and be thoughtful in our future plannings.
Our past goals have been trying to keep it around that $3 million mark.
Yes. The official board policy is between 5% and 8%.
Yeah.
So the revenues versus expenditures, like Jennifer, she's apparently experienced a missing number here on this chart. But from 17-18 through the current school year, it's showing if we plan on increasing or decreasing our fund balance, so revenues versus expenditures. And in 17-18, we actually used just under $100,000 of fund balance and then 3 years of growth. And then showing there in the 21-22 school year, the use of the 2.6 million and 22-23 is grayed out because these are all still projections still. But plan on using just under 100,000, which in a $38 million budget, that's a pretty balanced budget. So a little data that goes into this is just some salary information. So the 4-year salary history from 18-19, just spending over 16.8 million to 21-22 with a 19.9 million. And there are several factors in that. As you can see on the other side, from 21-22 to 2021 to 21-22, we increased our staff FTE. So that of course is going to increase your salaries. And then we also in October 2021, settled our collective bargaining agreement after budget was planned. So that was an increase that we had not fully budgeted for, which the next slide actually shows us. It's the left side still the same, the employee salary history, but then we budgeted for just under 19 million and ended up spending 19.9 million. So that's a reflection of increased FTE as well as the after budget bargaining agreement settlement.
I just point this out because it struck me when I first looked at this chart, it looked like that 21-22 is, almost double what it was. And if you just look at the bar graph, it's not.
No.
Look at the baseline, it's 13 million. It did go up, but it, 15%, not
Yes.
not 45.
And I did have to play with that y-axis. It looked a lot worse when I did the default. It looked like it tripled.
Yeah.
So that's why the dollars are included there. So this is another perspective of looking at the budget in student versus staff FTE. So that top line there is our student FTE from year to year. So 18-19, we had a small increase in students, and then 19-20 is when we started that decrease for the 3-year period. And traditionally, our staff FTE balances out and moves the same direction. So 18-19, the increase, and then the 2 years of the decrease. And then 21-22, although our student FTE decreased, that's when we're coming back from the pandemic, and we decided we need to invest money in staff to help support those students and get them where they needed to be. So this kind of shows the reason why it was an investment, and we used our fund balance, and it was intentional to give our students what they needed. So this kind of shows in a reflection. Okay, Van, if we can go back to like 4 slides. One more. Yep. So here we used 2.6 million of our fund balance. So kind of keeping this slide in mind, if we go back. Yep, we'll go forward. So as you can see from 21-22 to 22-23, we are increasing our ESSER spending a significant amount. So instead of using cutting or using fund balance, we are now investing those ESSER dollars into what we previously spent our fund balance on. So we're taking that ESSER dollars so we could maintain programs and increasing them significantly in 22-23. So that's the reason why we're able to have that balanced budget in 22 and 23, because we can rely on those ESSER dollars. But something moving forward that we need to consider is 22-23, we're going to lose about $750,000 of that ESSER money. It'll be gone. And then in 2-year time period, we will have no ESSER money.
Right.
So that really has to be considerate in moving forward of how we're going to keep that balanced budget and setting our priorities.
Yeah, I think that, that ties into the legislative discussion and our discussion earlier, but where our students are and the investments they need to get them back on track and is going to take more than 2 years. I think our legislators know that. Except see it both on the state and the federal level, how they respond. But your point from what we know we have, we'll have to make some adjustments that none of us think is a good idea if funding doesn't come the next year.
So this is what 22-23 our planned use of ESSER funds. And this is focused on, you were talking in the past to ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. There's other small pots of ESSER dollars that we're getting for various things, but this is focusing on the 1, 2, and 3. So we have 975,000 in non-staffing costs. And that includes things like curriculum materials, technology equipment, ESD mental health grants, classified staff of just under 65,000, our basic ed teaching staff of just over 1 million. And that is currently 7 classroom teachers K-8 that we're pushing in to help reduce the class size, to reduce them smaller than the prototypical staff model, because that was one of the things we knew going in is those students were going to need smaller class sizes in order to be successful and make up for anything that had been lost. And then 450,000 of other certificated staff. So this is our current planned usage of funds. And then that takes us, where do we go from here? And this is just a recap of the revenues and expenditures and how our fund balance has moved from year to year. So our goals are to maintain a balanced budget for the current school year. We're going to need to develop a balanced budget for the 23-24 school year. And in order to do that, we're going to have to gather input from stakeholder groups regarding program priorities, what's working, what's not working, do we need to try something new? We will continue to seek new funding opportunities, and we will remain transparent in our planned spending. So this is kind of just a starting block of several talks that we'll have over the next several months.
Any questions for Thomas? Anything? Any questions?
No, we went over this day before yesterday. So I answer. I had all my questions answered.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so now that we do have a quorum, let's go back up to the.
I think if you refresh, it's down in mine now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Fresh.
Yeah, if we have to vote on anything, could we?
Yes, I think-
Shuffle that. I get a little nervous if we're sitting here and try to vote on something and I gotta run. I don't want to mess our stuff up with.
Appreciate it. Yep. Yeah, I think we're moving to that now. So with the refreshed agenda here. So item 5 is an addition to add the student improvement program approval that we reviewed earlier to 7D, new business item D. I will move to approve that addition. Can I get a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Neil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Thomas. Moved. Okay, so now we're jump to the consent agenda. We have the minutes, vouchers, payroll, hiring, and the second reading of policies we covered the last week. Any questions, comments, anything in the consent agenda?
No.
All right, if not, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
As Neil, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Neil. Second. Thank you, Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They hear an aye. Yep, thank you, Thomas. All right, consent agenda is approved. All right, so now we'll move to new business. And our first item, we pause before new business. We've done this in the past where I know folks have come to give reports, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Ashton, I really appreciate you being here. Everybody's welcome to stay. But you're also going to give you an opportunity to enjoy the rest of your evening too.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Where's Bubba?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, girls basketball game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He said when he had accepted another job, that straight face, and I'm like, and it's working games. So he can't complain with you guys.
Yeah.
He's on mine.
I just realized he wasn't here. I'm like, he's always here. Oh, he's online? Hi, Bubba. Glad you're here.
At the game and doing both probably. All right, now, so next item is new business school impact fees.
Yep.
Litigation.
So I will speak a little bit about this. David McBride was going to be here tonight, but it looks like he hasn't been able to log in yet. So if you have any further questions, we'll have to get them to you. But I'm not sure that you guys do, and based on the preliminary conversations I've had. So you have the documents that David McBride had prepared for us. I just want to real quickly remind everybody that our impact fees are a one-time charge that our developers actually pay when they're asking for a permit to build a new house or a new multifamily dwelling. It's a one-time charge. I think that's really important to know. It's only for the new homes or the new, new development. This is the money that is collected from the impact fees. It helps to pay for the impact of the population growth on schools. And there in law, it does say that the impact fees must be used for growth-related capacity projects. So if you look at the documentation that is in board docs, you can see that there's a few things that go into determining how much we could charge for impact fees. And Jill, you might be able to speak to this too. So help me out if you hear me saying something, anything incorrect. But they look at the site acquisition costs, they look at the construction costs, the temporary facility costs, and then state match credit and what we can claim there. And they put all of those pieces together using a formula to determine what we potentially could charge or assess in an impact fees. When you look at this sheet, you see that we could ask for $13,213 for a single family home or $8,440 for a multifamily home or housing development, but that's paid for by unit. It's not typical that we charge the entire price or the entire amount that we could collect. It's recommended by David that we look at that 60%, which would be $5,286 for the single family homes and the $3,376 for the multifamilies. But we could also look at 65% or 70%, which is at the bottom of those sheets. I did also include the information about what our surrounding districts are charging for impact fees. And those are last year's fees. And you can see that we are
Significantly lower, the
Yes.
lowest.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we made a concerted decision last year to not to change anything.
Mhm.
I think but I want to open it up for discussion, I guess. I have an opinion, but I'd like to hear others as well.
I was thinking it was like the John rule or something we kind of came up with a couple of years ago where it was like we picked a percentage and okay, well, that sounds good at the time.
We kind of maintained that. I think, what we're seeing is we've fallen behind there, and these are one-time costs for new development. As a community member that's likely going to build a house next year, I still feel we have I guess I can get to my point. I think we should raise, maybe at least go there with the recommendation, because our community is growing, and the impacts on our schools. We have limited opportunities to ensure that that impact is funded. This is a small piece. This doesn't fully fund the need for adding another portable or those types of things. But it's part of the story. So I guess I would advocate that we do something, whether what's recommended or something that's more in line with that and equivalent to what we're seeing in neighboring districts.
I think we should be raising it. The economic impact to our area. This is one of the few things that we can actually have a say in, as it helps protect the stakeholders who have put in the effort and time in our community. We are one of the most affordable areas moving into this area anywhere along the I-5 corridor. And to the Grand Mountain meeting about a month ago, and their projections are 15,000 people here in the next 7 years. And we really need to think about our schools and trying to find land out towards the Grand Mound area or across the other side of the freeway. We're going to be impacted. There's a lot of farmers' fields that are about to get tore up into subdevelopments. They've just resolved the pocket gopher issue, I believe. And so, yeah, there was a discussion yesterday at the county office with the county commissioners about the development of some of the lots over here, because there've been requests to make smaller areas, and so they could do more urban growth. I personally feel that I was thinking 70% is what I was thinking.
What's listed here is a 60% discount. So were you thinking a 30% discount? This is a 60% discount. Were you thinking?
Okay, maybe 50.
Be a 50% discount.
We
So
need
it'll
to
be closer to 60,
Yeah.
6,500. Looking at, not that we have to be like anybody else here, but just looking at Olympia, Tumwater, they're in that $5,000 to $6,000 range, single family. And this would put us in the middle of that, 53 at the 60% discount, puts us about 5,300, 5,286. If we went to 50% discount, that's probably about 6,500. Just out front of that a little bit. Thomas,
Yeah. I am definitely on board with these. Talked about this the other day.
we're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, my internet connection is terrible. Can you still hear me?
We can hear you now, kind of.
Yeah, the internet connection here is terrible because we have more people in the building now. It wasn't developed for having that many people in the building. So, but I am up for raising those fees.
You can put them on speaker.
Thomas, could you call my cell phone?
Yes, hold on.
Perfect.
You can put them on speaker.
And up, yes.
So currently we were at like a 60% discount, right?
Yeah, I think we're a little higher than
They
that.
were 70.
We were 70% before, so this would change
2
it.
years ago.
Yeah.
70.
And we maintained it.
Yeah, you froze last year, took no action.
Yeah.
Okay, Thomas, everybody can hear you.
Okay. All right, I had to mute this other thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I am definitely on board with raising these fees. Whoever buys these homes is not going to see those fees, and it is not going to, when you look at a mortgage that's over a 30-year period of time, I don't feel, it's gonna be, a minute amount of money that they would never notice. I wouldn't notice if it was me buying a new house. Would never notice. It's not going to impact you that much. And for like apartments and whatever, I don't have a good number in my head, but more than what it was that we had that was on there for last year.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think I agree with your comments. I mean, that if the median new constructed home in our area is $500,000, the difference between a $3,800 and a $6,500 impact fee is not going to change your mind on whether you're buying that house or building that house or not.
No, it's not at all.
But it will have a positive impact on our ability to absorb the additional children and
Yes.
get in the schools and.
Yes.
Okay, so what we had in place, thank you, Jill, we had a 70% discount. From 2 years ago, we we held that last year, but have really taken no action. So this year we are discussing taking action. I'm blanking on it.
David.
David. Thanks, David McBride. It looked at, we were kind of recommending a 60% discount, takes us to 5,200, 5,286 for single family, 3,376 for multifamily. That's an increase from 3,800, 3,856 and 2,400. I guess I'm interested in what you guys would think of. What if we did a 50%? So that would take it to about 6,500 for a single family and about 4,200 for multifamily.
I like it.
Well, should we look at it? Would it make a difference if we had the multifamily be more, since it could be bigger? Am I not thinking in the right direction, or where single family is smaller, or does that matter?
Thomas, when we collect on a multifamily, we collect per unit.
Oh, that's right. And so if it's a duplex, you're collecting on both of them.
Right.
That's right. Okay, now I remember. Thank you.
Yep.
So the percentage is tied. Yeah. Do we, guess I feel bad that Michael and Juana haven't been able to weigh in on this either. Is there a time frame for this decision?
So in order for this to be effective, it needs to get to the county commissioners for their meeting. So all impact fees are approved and then posted on their website in time for the change on January 1. And we are
So it needs to be now.
waiting to take action or hold the action till next year.
Motion.
Neil has a motion.
All right. I would like to make a motion that we establish at 50% rate for house and duplex,
Multifamily.
multifamily.
Okay, did you hear that, Thomas?
Yes.
So the 50% rate, and it takes us to about 6,500. It's a little more than that. I didn't.
66,608.
6,608, and then the multifamily would be 4,200, 2020.
Yep.
Easier math for me to do in my head. So we have a motion on the table there. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Is this gonna count since we're doing this over the phone, and how is it still recorded?
Yes.
It is recorded. You hear
Speaker's right next to you.
And witnessed by the media.
We will be in the paper.
and witnessed.
And I got my subscription for that.
Okay. Thank you. Good discussion. I think it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it.
Change.
I'm in the construction trade, so I'm familiar with what the costs are, everything. So I really think this is fair and equitable for our community. I want to protect the people here.
All right. Next item is an expenditure for server room HVAC. Approve an expenditure of $16,195.93 to repair the HVAC. And we repair it or replace it?
It's
Replace
replaced.
it.
No ESSER's funding for that, huh?
Yeah.
Could we put a couple kids in the classroom? No.
I had one question on this. I wanted to know if we did another, if somebody else put a bid on this, because we have a local, AmeriCool is a local company. And this is a company out of Olympia. And I would like to see if we have a local company, where the AmeriCool, or if it's somebody else in this local area. If they had a chance to bid on this, if they wanted to bid on it or not.
So Thomas, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you today on this. Just to begin with, first of all, we don't have to go out to bid on this. And I did talk to Ed, and he's here and he's going to explain it to you, but this was kind of a looking at the job that needed to be done. And we work with both companies. but this is the company that really does the work in this area that we have been working with. But I'm going to have Ed explain that to you.
Okay, well, no, that's good. I understand. If they have if that's their specialty, I'm good with that. I just wanted to make sure that if a local company has the ability that they were given that opportunity. So I just did, I'm a stickler about keeping business in the local area. That's just one of my pet peeves. I try, I don't know.
Yep. Anything, Ed? Okay, nope, we definitely considered that. Yep. But this is kind of the specialty and the one that's servicing all of our units like this in the district, which really helps us to work with one company doing this level of work.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Just have to remind me that because I'll probably ask that question again.
You ask as many times as you want.
I do have a question. Maybe it's a dumb question. Maybe I should have figured it out on my own. But I tried to look it up today and I didn't find the answer I was looking for. Why do schools pay sales tax? We are funded by taxpayers.
This is when you go to your legislative thing in January. I'll start that process.
If I have an opportunity, I will address it there because it's like we are being funded by, it's kind of like buying a car. The analogy to me is you buy a car, you sell your car, the next person buys the car, they keep paying sales tax. And it's just like, why?
It's a recycling of 6% of the.
All right, we're going to keep going.
I'll be quiet now.
I got Thomas here. I don't want him to get called away.
All right, so
We gotta get these votes in.
yes, we do. So do I hear a motion to approve the expenditure for the server room at HVAC?
I will make that motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Neil. I will second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion approved. All right, next item, out-of-state travel. Girls and boys basketball teams. I think this is like the 5th year in a row, but Seaside, I know it is because I've been, it's my 5th year in a row. Girls and boys. To Seaside, Oregon for a holiday basketball tournament. Costs are associated here. I'm trying to think, I don't see the total.
I'm here, Grant, if you have any questions.
Oh, thank you.
You're just.
This is Coach Gino.
Coach Gino.
Oh, okay.
Boys head basketball coach. I think boys have rented an Airbnb kind of a house, kind of keeping all the boys together, team building, team bonding. Probably the better.
Yes, sir. And a better way to keep them supervised.
That's right. Any questions about this, board members?
No.
No.
Okay. Gino, since you're on the phone, I'd ask if you want to say something, but I think we're about to approve this.
No, I think this is a good opportunity, and I think the boys and girls are looking forward to this. So I know they're pretty hyped up for it, and I think they're ready for it. So let's go.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
And Grant, does he understand the emergency procedures if anything goes wrong? That's what I want to know.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. I do. I
Okay.
have all my emergency
That's all I got.
contacts there, and I know all my parents are going to be there. So we are good to go.
Yep. I signed the paperwork last night. Yeah. So I witnessed
Yes,
it.
sir.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for the boys and girls basketball team for the holiday tournament in Seaside. Here a second.
Neil, so moved. Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Bye.
All right.
Have the kids have fun.
You got a 4th eye. Thanks, coach.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Meeting.
All right. Next one is the student improvement plan approval that Thomas, I'm not sure how much of you caught of that. I think there was a pretty consistent theme throughout. He shared a lot of the focusing the additional resources, leveraging and creating plans to help kids catch up and move forward, from K through 12. I thought they were all, I was impressed with that, but they're all well thought out.
I missed most of them, but I was assured that, and in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, we need to add extra hours into the day. But I wasn't sure that we don't have to do that. That can be integrated in there. We need to just get these kids caught up.
Yeah, make investment with what we have in place. Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions, comments? If not, get a motion to approve the student improvement plans as presented.
Does Neil all make that motion?
Neil moves. Thomas, would you like to second?
I will second it.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks.
All right, student improvement plans are approved. Did we miss anything? I think our last item is another opportunity for public input. I know nobody else is signed in here. Is that sure? We got folks online. Give it 30 seconds or so.
You can give it 30 seconds.
All right, give it 30 seconds online. Please enter your name and email in chat, and we'll call on you in that order.
First meeting still?
No.
Wow. I don't want to touch since that's happened.
All right, no public comments. Thomas, thank you. Thank you for your service, and I'm glad you were able to join us, help us get through this meeting. We are adjourned.